Alright guys, Kremp here, and I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far, and finally some updates onto what's actually happening in the CDL season, which is due to start relatively soon indeed. Big rumours yesterday as to where the events are going to be this season, exactly what the format is going to look like, and it seems like, can you believe it, the CDL might have actually cooked up something rather good this year. It's not necessarily all positives, there are certainly still questions about exactly what's going to be happening, but certainly this seems to be a step in the right direction. Very much into your thoughts in the comments below, hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. Couple of quick things. First of all, Dante Sib is leaving Dallas, it seems, which was rumoured just because the Cloud9 team, Cloud9 New York, are reportedly playing out of Los Angeles. So this is a reasonably big deal for the context of the league. We know that Sib and the Subliners, they were based in Dallas over the last couple of years. They're now going to be based with Cloud9 out of LA, which can be a disadvantage. We know that, for example, the Los Angeles Thieves, that team of Scrappy and HyDra and Envoy and that kind of like package deal, they were considering going over to Gentlemates and playing on their organisation because Gataga's team at Gentlemates were saying, hey, we're going to house you in Dallas, which is where the players want to be for internet and other reasons, of course, as well, taxes, this type of stuff. And to be fair, it can help the organisation as well in that respect. But therefore, Nadeshot was like, all right, we've got to match that, and we're sending the boys, the LA Thieves-based team out of Los Angeles are going to play out of Texas, which has obviously been the case of many teams playing out of Texas over the last few years. But Cloud9 New York, as we think they might well be known, we're not exactly sure yet for the new season, New York-based franchise, used to be based in Texas, now they're going to be based out of LA. So it's all rather confusing, right? But especially when you see a franchise not based in LA, playing out of LA, I guess Cloud9 is, so it makes sense. And then you see Thieves, based in LA, playing out of Texas. It's all a bit of a mess. Why do we do the geolocation? I'm not going to talk about it again. But it is a relatively big deal, I guess. Of course, Dashy was looking forward to his company. No longer going to be the case. This as well, congrats to Donny Temp. I thought this was a cool update from him that I actually didn't see. But it was mentioned on the Dope Check show yesterday by Ace that he'd put this up on his Instagram, starting college on the 28th. So Donny wasn't rumoured into any of these kind of challengers teams that we saw the leaks about over the last couple of days, and it seems like Don's decided to go to college. So I think this makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, I'm happy for him. Hope it works out for the best, right? You know, having another option, backup plan, and also it does open the door to potentially play college COD as well, right? I think that'd make a lot of sense. Even Silly, world champion 2018, he went to play college COD when he did his degree over the next couple of years. So I think it could make sense as well here for Donny as well. Wishing the best for him, of course, because a great personality in the scene that's not really got his opportunities that he would have liked to over the last year or so after his time on the Paris Legion, Vegas Legion ended, rather dramatically. But let's get into these CDL related updates. So JCal drops this yesterday, Viva España, and this, of course, eventually referred to what we think we're going to see for Major 1 in the upcoming season. The last few years, Major 1 has generally been at the start of the new calendar year, which is not exactly optimal, and we think it may still be the case this time around as well. But if we have more events on the table, or at the very least, more interesting cities to go to around the world, that's probably going to be a positive thing for where we want this league to go. And according to rumours yesterday coming out of the rotation, the CDL season is going to kick off with Major 1 this year in Barcelona of all places. Now, from a European COD fan's perspective, this is absolutely mega. Now, it's not London, it's not Manchester, it's not a UK city, but it's still a couple of hours on a flight, right? So, absolutely sensational. And if this, of course, turns out to be true. Now, it's fascinating to see this because we've not really been... It's meant to be the World League on some level. It's not called the World League, but you guys remember when the league first came around, and we'll actually see some evidence of it in a second, they talked about the World's Tour all over the place. With even back in the day, for example, in the Black Ops 3 season, going out to Sydney, going out, I think it was Melbourne, wasn't it? It was the Crown Melbourne Invitational, like going out to Australia, playing events out there, like events obviously in France. ESWC used to be a thing, and potentially now going to Spain. Now, the Spanish scene in COD is big, as we full well know, and I honestly think that of all the cities that you could potentially make an event work and not lose a load of money, coming to Europe, coming to France, the UK, okay, London's going to be hella expensive, I imagine, to actually hire a venue, probably the same thing in Barcelona, but the fans are super passionate, and they've been begging for an event for the last few years, and it seems like that might be finally happening this year. Now, this is not going to be a Heretics event, per our understanding. They are seemingly still going to run their event in Miami, or Fort Lauderdale or something. We'll get to that in a second. This is likely to be a Toronto event, which is kind of confusing, but just to explain, Overactive Media own Toronto and they own KOI and Mad Lions. It's all part of the same thing. And Adam Adamu, the CEO over there, he's been heavily hinting lately that there will be more of a Spanish component to that organization than we have seen before. I think even a few months ago, they basically said that they would be looking into doing a Spanish event, and it seems like they might do this event and then also Toronto, which would be mega. And hopefully that happens. And despite the fact that Toronto, they might have run out of cash to form the team they really would have liked to, maybe there's still something on the cards here for them this season if they can pull that off in terms of goodwill for the community. Now, unfortunately, as ever, the major is probably going to be scheduled later than initially intended. I think we saw last year there were rumors that it was going to be Atlanta or DreamHack Atlanta maybe in December last year. That never happened, or the collaboration with the CDL never happened. I think the key thing is for the teams and for the league is to try and find a way to run these events without just losing so much money. Some teams are able to do it, other teams aren't, and don't have the proven ability to run an event without losing loads of cash. They don't want to risk it, maybe in the case of FaZe, Atlanta Esports Ventures, for example, and they're trying to find ways to partner with other event organizers to run their event in the same venue at the same time as somebody else, so it's cheaper. I think that's Adam Apicela's idea as well, coming back into the ESL FaceIt group now. So there were rumors, of course, around an event in December this year. The rumor had it this season was going to start super early, and it may still do. It may just mean that the majors, obviously at the LAN events, they take a little bit of time, but the game comes out in 5 days. Like, we need this league, whether it's online qualifiers, online tournaments, I don't know, to start up earlier, run through November, December, and then of course you get the event ideally in January. The issue is the event is either like early mid-December before Christmas, or the event is late January. There's only really two options, because either you get it done before Christmas, and if you can't, then everyone goes on holiday, and then by the time people come back and you do some more qualifiers for the major, it ends up being the end of the month, as we've seen in Boston before. But look, this is mega to go to Barcelona. I think the community support there is going to be insane, and I'm buzzing to go back there. I was lucky enough to be there in March this year, start of March. I was in Barcelona, brilliant city, and yeah, get to go back there for a CDL event sounds sensational to me. There was going to be an event in Anaheim. That was the rumor, that the kickoff was going to be, I think, December in Anaheim, back at the convention center, back at the Hilton bar, and this was a rumor behind the scenes for a little while now, and I was kind of hoping that it would happen, but turns out it isn't going to happen, right? This is no longer the plan. So in the same way maybe that Atlanta was going to be a thing last year, Anaheim is just not seemingly back on the table yet. The other cities, though, that are rumored to host events are as follows, and this is where the Barcelona thing, I think, is great, right? I mean, we're getting back to a position where more events on the calendar, more interesting cities on the calendar as well. But of course, the other point is, are we going to have more events than last year? Because back at MW19, we were meant to have tons of events. COVID, of course, cut that short on some level. And over the last few years, we've effectively had less and less competitive competition in a LAN environment. This year we want more. It's like the number one thing the fans want from the league is just more LAN events, and everyone that's ever been to a COD LAN event will tell you they're brilliant and they want to go to more. But unfortunately, we haven't had so many. But at least with the CDL being based in big cities, we tend to get these events now in 6 cities, and Barcelona is certainly one of them. So the other cities that have been thrown in are Miami again, which is interesting because if anyone went to that Miami event this year, I didn't, but the feedback was, weren't exactly the best, and there were, it was super last minute. It was not feeling like a proper CDL major as others have done. No Boston, it seems this year. They might have run out of money, and I get it, fair play. Miami, though, they're getting their hat back in the ring, and I know that some people would say, oh, well, Miami held a terrible event last year, why are they getting to do one again? But no one else wants to host one. So fair play to Heretics. They're putting their hat in the ring to run one again. Like, I'll commend them. They'll probably do a better job this year than they did before. Whether it's actually Miami and not Fort Lauderdale, that is another question, and hopefully it's probably Miami this time. Dallas, presumably, is an OpTic event. Toronto, a Toronto event. But yeah, so the idea that we get a new city in play like Barcelona is great for the scene, I think. In addition to another rumor that there is a 5th event this year, possibly going to be in Chicago, which is another, major city that COD has not been too many times. There was famously UMG Chicago 2012, I think was the Black Ops 2 event where Aches and Nadeshot pushed each other, which is pretty funny. But I don't know if there's been a Chicago event since then. So this would be really cool. But of course, it then raises the question as to, okay, who's running it, right? Because OpTic have ties in Chicago. Is it going to be like a Chicago event for them? What's Champs going to be, right? Because we're assuming EWC is still happening in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I'm pretty sure that it will be. It's going to go on for another few years. So that's happening at some point. That could be August as it was this year. That could be even July, and they could do Champs then in August, right, and swap the two around. I don't think it's impossible that happens. Is this going to be a major in Chicago? What's going on here? Because then people are like, damn, we could be looking at 7 major lands this season. Barcelona, Miami, Dallas, Toronto, Chicago, Champs somewhere, and then EWC, which would be super exciting, and hopefully this happens. I don't know if I'm going to be that optimistic, right? And actually, Ronnie says that currently it's again going to be 4 majors and Champs. So is Chicago going to be the Champs location? Is Dallas going to be Champs again? And then OpTic host an event in Chicago? I mean, that could be kind of interesting. I'm not really sure right now. But also, what about an organization like the Falcons, right? Because the Falcons coming in, they've not spent big this year on their roster. They could have done. We know that they've got loads of money. If they wanted to, they could have come in and been the organization that said to Scrappy and HyDra, hey, you want to come here and we'll give you more money than anyone else and we'll give you the facility you want. They could have done that. They didn't decide to. They're hiring their own Saudi team, which is really commendable, I think. But at the same time, it does mean that they've also got some money in the bank probably to spend in their budget, theoretically, right? So I was half expecting a Falcons hosted event this season, and maybe it could still happen. I mean, hypothetically, could Falcons host Champs in Vegas, which is technically their host city? We've had Champs in Vegas before. OpTic hosted Champs this most recent year. You know, if I'm really in dreamland, I'm looking at this, but instead of having Chicago Champs, I'm having Chicago Major 5, and I'm having Champs in Vegas and then EWC. But I think that's probably a tad optimistic. But yeah, what do you guys think about this? Because this was the CDL World Tour as was described here back in 2020, when we were meant to go to London, Atlanta, Paris, LA, New York, Toronto, Dallas, Chicago, Florida, Seattle, etc., etc., basically every weekend for a whole year. And in many respects, this was just a terrible idea. And I'm not going to get into the reasons why precisely again. But this was never going to be sustainable. But it was pretty mega what they were trying to do. And over the next couple of years, once the CDL came back to LAN properly for 2022, we had the OpTic LAN, we had the Minnesota LAN, then we had the Pro-Am Classic where there was nothing there. Toronto then did one that year. Subliners did one, of course, famously that year. But yeah, that was 4 majors that year, plus the Pro-Am. 2023, we did have an additional one. We had Raleigh at the start of the year, then Boston, Texas. New York eventually pulled out and they had to run a local one, and then the Toronto LAN to close out the year before then the World Championship. And then this year, obviously we get even, few events on some level. It was just Boston, Miami, Toronto, and then the Ravens one never even happened. And then thankfully we had Champs in Dallas, which was mega, and then the World Cup. So I think, look, we need the CDL to do something right. And I think this is what people are begging for right now, is that you look at the state of the league and you just wonder, okay, can we at least get something better from year to year? Because every year in the CDL, on some level, something has gone backwards. This year, we desperately need it to take a step in the right direction again. We need this season to be better than last season. I think it can be, and on these rumours, I think that it will be. Whether they can confirm these things, whether it's all going to be locked in, I don't know. But if this is true, that we go to Barcelona for the first event, which would be sensational, and then the rest of the events in the season as well go as we have rumoured them to be over the last few minutes here, I think we will have a stronger season and calendar than the previous year. And I think the CDL is arguably going to be in a better spot with the removal of the franchise fees. So if they can execute on this, it does make me optimistic about the future of the league, which has been, I wouldn't say my optimism has been waning. Like, I'm pretty optimistic in general, but you know how the CDL has gone, and if every year is just going to get worse and worse, how can we be confident in this product going into the next 5 years? Which we can't really. So very much interested in your thoughts as ever on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hex actually did see the clip of AG shoot at hoops yesterday, so hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.